I'm Britton LaRue, and this is Moon to Moon. Moon to Moon is a space to consider, celebrate, and share the ways we come home to ourselves, anchor through change, and uncover our power. 1 month, one phase, one loving step at a time. Dear Moon to Moon, I am so excited to get this conversation out in the world. You're about to listen to me chatting with Mary Grisey, who I'll introduce in a second. We met last Friday. I'm recording this on Monday morning. It's the 12th, I think. When the moon is shifting from Pisces to Aries right now. And I wasn't going to be putting this out for a couple more weeks, but I'm so excited. Like, I just can't handle it not being out in the world. We could have talked for hours. There is a deep connection between us that I'm sure is partly mysterious, but truly I feel not only human Britton excited to be with Mary, but I feel my whole spirit team like with me. Like they're really excited that I know Mary, and they're really excited that we're creating this friendship. And so I want to name that. You might be able to feel the depth of what's happening between us, and following the mysteries of the connections that I make through just following my desire, following my curiosity, following like a voice that's talking to me about like, go talk to this person, go get to know this person. This, following that, like runs my life now. And I'm so grateful to be someone who has the courage to do that, because I used to not listen to that because I was afraid, like, what if they don't want to know me? What if they don't want to talk to me? What if they are annoyed at me for bugging them? That was a big one I used to always hear, is that I'm going to bug people. And now I understand that if there's an impulse, like if it's a picture that you're seeing in your mind's eye, or like your heart is kind of lifting about somebody else, that is really divine. And that is the compass, that's the compass. And I'll just take all the parts of me worried about whether Mary likes me, whether someone likes me with me, as I continue to trust that these impulses are sacred. So, I asked Mary to come on Moon to Moon, and Mary said yes, like right away, and we got something on the books. So thank you, Mary. I'm going to call this episode Remembering Your Gifts. Remembering is a word that I use a lot, and remembering is a big keyword for Mary. I took her class last spring, The Architecture of Remembering. And I can't speak for Mary, but what I really love about this word, and I imagine it's part of what Mary loves about it, is that it puts the power back into the student to remember remember that what you're teaching, what you're conveying in your class is something that the student already knows, you know? And I really enjoy teaching from that place of like being more like a hermit. And my role is like just being a lantern, just like, remember how you already know this? Yes, you already know this. It's it feels very empowering for both sides, because then I can relax the part of me that's like, I've got to convey all the information. Like, I've got to make sure they get it or something like that. And it for me, it's really just about illuminating what may have been forgotten over lifetimes, or forgotten in this lifetime for reasons that, aren't our fault. And here they are remembering. And it's just a process that takes us deeper and deeper. You will hear about how we are connected. And then later in the conversation, you will hear about how, well, first let me just give Mary's bio so I can give some context to what I'm about to say. Mary Grisey is a psychic medium, multidimensional channeler, and visual artist based in Los Angeles, California. She's been connected to the unseen world ever since she can remember, and works closely with her spirit guides. Mary is passionate about connecting her clients to their truest selves, spirit team, and loved ones who have crossed over to the spirit world. She also loves helping other intuitives find their voice in this world, whether that be through a one-on-one session or mentorship. Yes. So the course I took, The Architecture of Remembering, she joked that it's her greatest hits. We covered the basics of psychic development, then mediumship, and then soul regression. So past life regression is what I mean. And when I took it, the first and the third there, I had already had training in, but it was really different and expansive to receive these teachings through somebody else's vocabulary, somebody else's toolkit, somebody else's frequency than how I learned it. And so, because the truth is with remembering our gifts, it's not that thing where you're like, all right, I already done that. Or like, I already know that. Like that kind of attitude is, I have found to be true, not super helpful when we're speaking about, well, frankly, most things, I would say. But definitely not in the realm of our intuitive gifts, because it is mostly mystery, Like, it is mostly mystery. So, like, how can you ever say, oh, I already know that, or I've already done that? Like, you can't. It's not a possible thing. You can't say that about astrology either. Like, there is no way to like reach a limit. There's no way to be like, I've already learned everything there is to know about Aries. That's just not a thing. Like, I already know the tarot. I don't need to learn anymore. Like, that kind of attitude just is not magical, And so, but I never learned about mediumship when I went in. So that was the one that like, oh my gosh, like really blew me open. And in fact, like really scares me. There's so many parts of me that are terrified. And you know why? It's not, the terror that I feel is not really that something bad will happen at all. Like, at all. Some part of me is afraid of my power here. Some part of me is like afraid to really know myself. to really know myself in such a love frequency. And this is okay. I'm going to unfold my gifts there on their own timing. And to me, this is not a problem or something to shame myself for. But I'm very happy to be initiated in the process, and I will go at my own slow pace with it. What I want to tell you is that over the course of the conversation, you hear me talk about my process of understanding myself as a channeler, a multidimensional channeler, because we were talking about Mary channeling her guides and being gifted in what's called direct voice and what's called automatic writing, channeled writing. And I was sharing about how I know I have these gifts, and that I really love that Mary knows who she's communicating with and is like really openly doing that in a public way. And that I feel myself to be at like a precipice of wanting to really get into what it is I'm doing in a more committed way, in a more like next level curiosity, next level remembering. And we joked like, maybe I should do mentorship with you. So after we quit recording, we had a whole conversation. Like we talked on, and we talked a long time after we stopped recording because we were just having so much fun. And it was difficult to close because there was like always one more thing that we wanted to talk about. But I'm going to be working with Mary. Mary and I are going to start doing a one-on-one mentorship to help me like really go to a new space with my channeling. And I'm totally freaked out. But again, it's not because I think something like bad is going to happen. It's because, honestly, the scarier thing for all of us is to feel closer to the magnificence of these gifts, you know? Like that's a lot for the human self to hold. So there's no wrong timing, you know? It's like all about, to me, like listening to that same impulse I was speaking about at the beginning, listening to that impulse of like, oh, now is the time that I'm going to do that. Because why? Because I'm feeling the desire, and the desire is sacred. The desire is divine, you know? And so, looks like Mary and I are doing mentorship. That's here now. So very exciting. So on the other side of our conversation, which I'm just like freaking out. I can't wait for you to hear this. It just feels like a whole new world for Moon to Moon, which is now almost 4 years old. It's so exciting. I just really loved this conversation, like at so many levels of my being. And then on the other side of the conversation, I want to share with you my saying yes to this mentorship the very next day. And then now every morning since Friday, I have just sat down on my journal and just like pages and pages have been coming out. And I want to share with you some of the channel writing that I've been doing just since I said yes. Like we haven't started. That is what happens when you say yes to something that is going to take you to the next realm. The shifts start happening immediately. It's so exciting. All right, y'all. And please enjoy my conversation with Mary Grisey. Okay. Un, deux, trois. Welcome to Moon, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's so wonderful to be in space with you.
Yes, me too.
So usually when folks come on to Moon, we begin with sharing how we're connected as human beings. And I don't know how you found me, but I know how I found you. And that's through our shared friend, Rebecca Paget. Rebecca had been my astrology student in 2020, and we all got really close because that was the year of quarantine. And we were such a tight community inside of this astrology class, exploring the cosmos together and learning about ourselves. And then the next year, I offered the first of an annual container that I do for emerging mystics and healers and readers called the Magician's Table. And Rebecca said that she didn't want to do it that year because she was working on developing her intuition and psychic development. And I was like, all right, you go, Rebecca. And the next year she came to the Magician's Table, and there's an episode on Moon to Moon from fall of 2022 titled This Is Who I Am Now, where she shared the process of the Magician's Table revealing that her psychic gifts were really speaking to her, and it was like a death process because it was a letting go of Rebecca the astrologer, right? So
hmm
that's kind of a fascinating path when you think you're on one mystical path, and then now you're on another mystical path.
Yes.
And last year, around exactly this time, I was talking more and more with Rebecca because Rebecca was supporting me in last year's Magician's Table as what I call the 13th reader, which is like the person helping me hold the space who's also participating in it. And in our conversations we were having, I shared that I wanted to go deeper in my own psychic development, that I'd had all this training in intuition, but there was something about the way that she was connecting that was calling me at a spirit level. And then she recommended you to me. And she's like, you're not going to believe this, but Mary's class, Architecture of Remembering, is going to be starting really soon. And I can't recommend it enough. And I had been on hiatus from learning containers. I hadn't been taking any classes, but I trust Rebecca so completely, and took Architecture of Remembering with you last spring. As you know, did it completely asynchronously, but devote with devotion, and really opened into some gifts I didn't know that I had, and I'm still experimenting with. So that's when I started following you and really attuning to your voice as you speak more broadly beyond that container. And then I was able to receive a reading from you in December, which was so deeply meaningful. We connected to my dad, and just to every cell in my body, I say thank you, and I witness you in your beautiful, glorious gifts.
Oh,
Both as
thank
a
you.
yeah, as a healer and as a teacher, because I found your curriculum to be very elegant and really thoughtful and structured in a way that felt like logically um, like something that you could understand why it followed the path that it followed, while still being, extremely expansive in this kind of like Pisces Virgo polarity.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for coming on Moon to Moon.
Oh, thank you so much for saying all that. And it's an honor to know you and be here.
Yes. So what I'd really love to do is find out more about how you became the person that you are today, emerging into today, Mary Grisey, the multidimensional channeler and the psychic.
and the spiritual medium and the visual artist. What I'd love to just let you speak for a while and take up space with your story. It's not like most people going through elementary school, high school, college are planning to become mediums.
Right.
So I'd love to learn more about how you found out about your gifts and what you love about sharing your gifts.
Yeah, thank you. Well, like any story, it's definitely a roller coaster and it's not linear. So, um, I'm one of those mediums or, psychic mediums that knew they were a medium since birth, I guess. Obviously I don't remember, that going that far back, but I think my earliest memories was about 4 years old. And my grandmother, who I'm named after her, Mary, she passed in our home. And I remember it just obviously it's, crushing my mom because that was her mom. And there was a period of time, it was like a week after her passing, where I could see her walking around the house. And when I say see her, a lot of, mediums talk about seeing spirit in their mind's eye, but I would see her like full bodied as if she was, there. And I remember there was this one time cleaning my room. And of course, I wasn't actually cleaning, I was just playing while my mom was actually putting the toys away. And she was on the other side of my bed. And so I couldn't really, like see her. I was crouched down and I heard very just like audibly, Mary, someone just shouting my name, but it sounded kind of like muffled, like it was in a tube or like it just sounded a little bit different. But of course, I'm foreign, whatever. Like I was like, oh, I heard a voice say my name. I'm gonna say what? So I turn around and I'm like, what? To my mom. And she looks at me and she's like, what? And and then I heard Mary again. And I go, what? And she's like, I didn't say anything. And then she looked at me almost as if we knew that at that moment I was actually hearing something. Um, and she smiles and she kind of made this comment like I know you're hearing that. And these instances would happen over and over again where we would have these moments together where I was kind of like sensing the spirit communication from her mom, and she would be like, "That's my mom, huh?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Um, so definitely that was her voice that I was hearing saying my name. And there would be instances like the lights going on and off in the house. And it wasn't the random like electricity in an old house. It was like very intentional, like the light switch going on and off. And I know up until now that like this is how spirit communicates with lots of people, right? Is messing with the electricity. And so there, I could tell you lots of stories here about my childhood and spirits, but these were the things where I was like, okay, I can communicate with spirit. And I knew my mom also had the gift, and I actually know Mary, my namesake, she had a natural gift to be a medium, but I think there was something within me that was like amplified. And I don't really know what that is. And I'll just lean into the mystery of that and be grateful for it. But this this gift was really amazing, but then it turned into something quite scary. If you remember, like the early 90s, there were those shows like Sightings and Unsolved Mysteries. And I can hear like the dun 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 dun, like the song of the show coming on, and it just gives me the shivers. And that instantly put me in a fear-based mode from watching these shows so young. And really feeling like that the spirit world is scary because of this. So it really turned this magical, um, like pure feeling of connecting with spirit to this like I'm being haunted. And
Mhm. Mhm.
and then I will say it simultaneously, I had a lot of childhood trauma with my siblings and my father and my parents. So I think with any very sensitive child, one would confuse also to like that for maybe dark entities or something, throwing that in the mix. So I really pushed it away. And I think this is a common story for most mediums, like where they have this like really pure ability to communicate with spirit, and then it turns fearful because we're not given um, the platform or the foundational sort of support, right? And I think my mom just like didn't know like what to do. It could be a generational thing, I'm not sure. Um, I think that I really just had to find my own way. So fast forward to my teens, I was actually gifted a tarot deck, and which I still have today. And I that was kind of like my first foray into using, my psychic abilities. And that's really how I read the tarot, because I know there's like many ways to, use the tarot. Um, I think, well, I always called tarot my safe bridge to communicate. Um, to me, it was something tangible that could make sense to me to connecting with psychic ability. And then from there, around like 18, 19 years old, I went to college and I majored in art. And my art practice, thank God for it, because that was the thing. It was a tool for me to really, again, like ground what I'm doing in a tangible way. Um, and in university and in school, um, there wasn't like a psychic medium major, and I knew that I wanted to pursue a higher education. And I also think there was pressure of like that was the thing we did, like you go to college.
Yeah.
And I think times are obviously changing now, but back then, that was the next step to like make it in the world. So art was really a way for me to channel, I mean, so many things, spirit communication, past life memories, feelings and loss and grief. And it was literally my therapy, my like temple space. So I really went far with that. I got 3 degrees in art. So I am a master artist. And basically, really the turning point uh, where I recognized and identified and I think named my psychic mediumistic ability was this one time when I was living in Toronto, and that's where I got my master's degree. And my good friend Brooke, who owns this shop, this really cute shop, I think it's closed now. Um, she asked me to be her resident reader. I think that the reader before, uh, yeah, like couldn't do it anymore or whatever. And I was just like, oh my God, really? And it was like, I think that moment, it was the door opener for me to actually help people with this thing that I have. And so of course, I said yes and immediately was like, um, giving the readings, loving it and really feeling like, okay, I think, this is something that I could really see myself, doing. And meanwhile, I'm struggling. I'm like bartending, waiting tables, biking to my art studio in the snow, like not even joking, and trying to make it as an artist simultaneously too. Um, so it wasn't until I had this call, this deep knowing, um, almost like when I heard my mom, sorry, not my mom, my grandmother in the spirit world just whisper, move to LA. And it was like,
Wow.
it was loud. And at the time, I was dating someone who I had like extremely, strong feelings for. And he was one of the first men in a really long time where um, I felt safe. And it was like this budding, really amazing relationship in Toronto. And I was like, but the voice was so loud that even that I was like, I'm gonna sacrifice this like amazing relationship that I found, for this just deep knowing of like, you need to go there. And I didn't fully like, I mean, I knew it had to do with a career, but it was this just like, you gotta go. So I packed up everything. My one-eyed pug, Susie Q, RIP, she's amazing. Um, and drove, yeah, cross country to Los Angeles with like all my belongings, my weaving loom and like all my stuff. And when I got to LA, I mean, LA whipped my ass. It was really hard. And again, I found myself, there's nothing wrong with waiting tables and serving. It's just, it's not my path. But it was really hard on me. And I moved back and, my family is all here in LA. So that was like the silver lining. It was really nice, to be back with family. Um, but then at one point there was this opening for this spiritual shop. I'll not name it, but and and they were looking for a reader. And immediately I was like, yes. So I did the interview where I read for the owner. And so pretty early on my move there, I just slipped in and I found that opening and started reading for people at this like metaphysical shop in LA. Which I always called it my psychic boot camp. Um, and I think the rest was history. I really built up my clientele from there, and I will attribute that to a lot of really my I guess my visibility and really connecting with people in this way. And there I got Reiki attuned, and that was actually the pivot where it opened up my crown chakra, and it opened up my like clairvoyance. And from there I was putting down the tarot cards and I was just giving people readings through me without picking up a card. And then simultaneously I started feeling spirit people, like their departed loved ones. And I was like, I know I have your grandma here. I know. And I'm like, I think I'm a medium. Yeah. And again, I didn't have the development and the support. So, that from there I started getting training and development. But it wasn't until 2020 when we all know that lovely year, the pandemic, the world shut down, and I gave birth to my first daughter, Sophie, in February, and my mom passed away about 5 days later. And then we dropped into a worldwide pandemic, and it was like boom, boom, boom. And it it was the most gut-wrenching thing. Like I feel like really emotional just bringing it up, but it was like literally the grief turned itself into some spiritual awakening that I had never felt in my life. Literally, as I just said that, I saw a spark in my left eye right now. That was really, really cool. Okay, so I can, yeah, my mom's definitely here supporting this. And so basically, the spirit world was like blown wide open. I could the psychic senses that I really wasn't fully attuned to, like I would say I'm mostly a visual, like I'm very clairvoyant. I started to hear audibly, like when I was a child, um, spirit people, these guides that I channel. I was having spontaneous memories of past life civilizations on other planets. I was, and I was like, okay, Mary, you gotta like hone this in. And then I just started mentoring, with someone and to really like fine tune, um, my evidential mediumship, which which is basically like proving consciousness after bodily death, with evidence that the sitter would understand. Um, so yeah, I now it's like 4 years later, I think I have a PhD in mediumship. My dear teacher passed away summer of 2022. But like it's been a wild ride of um channeling extra dimensional beings, like giving birth to two of my daughters, which motherhood is like a crazy journey in itself, losing my mom, and really, I think more just stepping into this is what I'm doing. This is how I am serving and expressing, myself. So that was a really long story. So thank
Oh,
you for listening to that.
thank you, Mary. I feel so much energy in my left hand. It's like I feel like my whole guidance is like holding my hand right now. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
um, I have many questions, but I'm wondering like what it is do you think about the alchemy of grief?
Yeah.
What is it about grief that opens in a way?
Hmm. Yeah, so there's so many layers, yeah, to that question. But the first layer that I'll talk about is for me, connecting with my mom in a way that was so pure and not kind of fucked up from, sorry about my cussing. But
Explicit podcast.
oh, okay. Well, we just made it explicit, so so yeah, effed up by the ego, like really just knowing her on a soul level, connecting with her spirit and her truth. And I could, it was so beautiful. And I know that's not really like quote unquote grief, but it was like really, really like fully seeing her. And then I know I had this knowing that she saw me. Not Mary, the youngest of four kids, like always the baby Mary, but she really saw me in my power. And there was this beautiful journey that carried me through, of you're my spirit guide now, like you're on my team. This is so cool. And um, really, I think that I'm lucky in a way that I have these tools, or grateful, I guess I would say, that I have these tools, that I've developed and figured out to where I don't have to wonder if my mom is there. Like I know it and I can connect with her as a medium. Of course, like, I've had two kids since she passed. So like there's those moments where when she's not here physically, hey, like I really need help because I got this appointment and there's no one here to like help me with the kids, or help me when I'm breastfeeding and I don't know how to like do this thing, and just any like motherly advice about being a mom. Like I never had that. So that was really, really fucking hard. Um, and you know, lately I've been thinking that this was all honestly like perfectly kind of orchestrated at the same time, um, in the development of my mediumship too, as shitty as that sounds. Um,
Mhm.
but it is, like I said in the beginning, like this journey is not linear. Like certain days, especially this week, I've been feeling really heavy with grief. And I think that in these moments is to really just go through it and to allow myself to um recognize it and allow myself to be human instead of spiritual medium Mary, and
Mhm.
allow myself to just fall, and that helps me, like you said, like alchemize, and really just be in a down place, because I know that this is a roller coaster, that I'm gonna be 80 years old and miss her, hopefully I'll make it to
Mhm.
80, but yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for that. I feel it so deeply. I feel very emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, it's I don't know. It's there's I wouldn't say that's every medium's journey is this like deep loss, but I would say um there's always a story that brings us here, like a grief journey, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do your siblings have, um, do they play with these gifts at all?
Yeah, I love that you are bringing that up, because my sister, who's actually like she's the oldest in the family, and her and I are pretty close, and she she's an Aquarius. I'll just name that. I'm a Leo, so we're like polar
Okay.
on the polar spectrum. Um, and she's recently really coming into her gifts, and her and I talk about, we're like, this is in our maternal lineage, like straight up. And I recently, for her birthday, was a few days ago actually, and I bought her this beautiful ceramic like Kuan Yin sculpture,
Oh.
and 'cause she loves her, and she's really, really coming into her own voice as, I'll just name it. I'm like, you're a psychic, like straight up. She's a therapist for a living. But I'm like, I think what you're actually doing is you're holding psychic space. So
Mhm. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Us, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say I have two other siblings, and
Yes.
they're not really totally utilizing it, but and they're two brothers, and but I would say it's within them, but I just think they don't express it, like my sister and I do.
Yeah. Um, so when did you begin the process of teaching, developing your courses?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, of course they evolved throughout the years with what I was doing and then mastering,
Mhm.
But I would say I started teaching at university when I was a grad school student.
Right.
That was years and years ago. But so I've loved teaching. That's like a big passion of mine, is to help other people hone in, their gifts. Um, and because I didn't receive that, like it's so important for me for people to really not feel strange or weird or like there's something wrong with them. I'm like, no, this is real. Like, so I would say it really hit strongly with like the teaching when I moved to LA, like probably a few years after that, when I really started honing in this with clients. And it first started with like tarot, like teaching, because that was what I was like, I really knew, you know. And then it started moving more into like psychism and then mediumship. Um, and then now, you know, teaching the architecture of remembering um my greatest hits basically. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so I would say God, like 7 years, like 7, 8 years, something like that. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
teaching pretty consistently.
Well, certainly the architecture of remembering felt very like yeah, like felt like a home you know well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. It
Yeah.
it was something that class was totally channeled. And I remember that. I know something is obviously channeled when I am stopped dead in my tracks, and my guides were like, get a pen out, like get your notebook out, write this shit down. And I just literally wrote the curriculum, and my husband was right there. He was like, "Oh my God, like this is a really, you got to teach this." And I just started like, I wrote a whole 12-week course in 30 minutes. And but I
Yeah.
mean, obviously it was my whole years and years of expertise and practice and development, fails and wins and things like this, but it was just like vomited out of me. Sorry to use that word, but
Oh.
um and voila, yeah, it was like it happened and I released it, and it's been really awesome, you know, teaching that these past few years.
Yeah, do you feel like, I mean, I think that you said in the class that it's your sense that we're all capable of psychic gifts and mediumship?
Yeah, yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, first of all, we're all spiritual beings, you know, we're all souls living in this human body, this human vehicle, this experience. Um, but I do think that people are born with an expression, like it might be in their DNA. I think we're all still trying to figure this out, like what it actually is. It's our life mission, you know?
Mm.
Um, I think it really is up to what do you desire? What do you want? And what are you innately drawn to? So I think anyone could be a psychic, anyone can be a medium if it is something that um, you want and something that you are innately attracted to for, you know, whatever reason that is, right? So just like anyone can be a doctor, but can anyone really? Like, I think you have to really want it.
Mm.
Yeah, and to have that expression, that drive to like do the thing, because mediumship is hard work, and it takes like consistent development. And I think a lot of people don't really know that or like recognize that.
Mm.
Like it's a party trick or and yeah,
Not a thing that you have, and then you just have access to the same way always.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And I imagine for me, like my own process of dabbling in it is it really taps into my fear of being wrong or like of making a mistake, right? Like
Yeah. Oh
the
my gosh, yes.
audacity to be an evidential medium, like that's a lot of bravery in
Yeah.
healing the parts of you that might be afraid that like you'll be invalidated if you don't get it all right.
You are speaking my soul, because literally I feel like I should start a podcast about this, like the anxiety of a psychic medium stories, volume 1. This is like for reals. And I think I have a Venus, or wait, no, I have a Mercury Virgo. So like how I read that is like straight up, I don't want to be wrong. And I think
Yes.
that being a medium is like healing balm. It is so hard for me to like, you know, let go. I think it's hard for anyone to let go of the ego, and not the ego in like this like shitty narcissistic way. I mean more like the ego in a way of like the ego keeps us safe. And I am such someone like in my mind, I have a strong mind. Which is
Yes.
probably why I love teaching, right?
Mm.
But mediumship has healed like it has healed all aspects of my life. It has been the most incredible journey of really getting to know my soul, how it works in the way that is not physical, but then how my soul then works with my nervous system and my physical body. Um, and then getting to know all this cool shit about the spirit world. I mean, I can go on and on how cool mediumship is, but um the not wanting to get it wrong is literally the thorn in any medium side.
Yeah.
It's you consistently throughout a reading. I mean, I think it gets better as you develop, but I don't care if you're like a world-class medium, like I think that anxiety is always going to somewhat be there.
Yeah. And like to stay with your channel or to stay open, even as you've quote unquote missed or you're not getting feedback that it the person knows what you're talking about, and to hold to that level of self-trust. It's just like feels
Yeah.
like truly a healing practice in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been readings where the client is like, "No, no, I don't remember. No." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Oh my." But the feeling that the spirit communicator gives me as I'm receiving that information is always my feeling of this is a yes. I know full body that this information is accurate. So I'm going to trust that what I'm getting, this client will probably remember the information later and then email me or like, tell me, oh, remember that thing you said that I said no to, Um, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I know I'm right, because of course I'm
Mhm.
wrong in all of my readings about something. But like the beauty of mediumship as you develop is like really trusting yourself enough to then know that resonance of trust in the spirit world. So
Yes.
trust is a huge thing.
Trust.
Hmm.
I'm curious, do you think for you, obviously different people will have different answers to this question, but I'm asking Mary. Do you feel that the soul is the same thing as consciousness, or are they different, distinct things?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say that the soul is that immortal consciousness, and the body is the vehicle to drive us through this incarnation that we've chosen, I guess. So yeah, I think the soul is definitely I don't know if the word consciousness, yeah, I guess I would say that. But you know that there's the conscious mind and then the unconscious awareness and then the super conscious.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that the brain, I've had to do a lot of this is going to sound weird to say, I've done a lot of thinking about the brain. But in how much the brain affects our consciousness or what we're aware of, you
Mhm.
know, and giving the brain like something to do. So because the brain is that thing that gets in the way of the beauty, I think, of these readings. Going back to like the I don't want to be wrong type thing. So but yeah, for sure, like I am very sold that the consciousness does not die after bodily
Yes.
death.
And I think earlier you said something about the spirits of our loved ones as being like a consciousness that's still ongoing. Did I hear that correctly?
That our loved ones in spirit are,
They're like a form of consciousness.
yeah. There's something to be said about like I think the more that I've been teaching these subjects on, the spirit world and things like that, there's some things that I allow to just rest into the mystery of
Yes.
like of not knowing. Like I really actually don't know 100% answer to this question. But in my lived experience or my experience with being a medium, working with people's loved ones, my mom and other people that have passed close to me, is that they absolutely retain their personality. Um, they retain their essence of, how like you can hang out with someone in a room and like forget what they look like or how they dress, whatever. But sitting next to them, you feel their resonance of like, this is definitely you. Like this is your flavor, their frequency. So the spirit world retains this frequency. Actually a better example of that is like having an animal, right? Um, like
Mm.
two pug dogs. Sorry, I love pugs. They can look the same seemingly, but there's always like a frequency about them and who they are when they're alive, right?
Mm.
I don't think that part dies necessarily. There is always this like uniqueness, maybe individualism or something like that. And sometimes I always question or wonder when I'm doing mediumship, I'm like, is this because you're giving me information because this is how your loved one would remember you, you know? And are you
Mm.
still actually like that on the other side? What is it like on the other side?
Yes.
I'm eternally obsessed, yeah, with this question.
Yeah. Do you have any data to share? Like what have you heard?
Oh my God, I do. I got to share some writing with you actually after this, but
Please.
I am writing a book about this, which has morphed and changed in the past few years. But so like rewind back to 2021 actually. I was studying an Akashic Records, kind of like a certification course with this woman, Josephine. And one of the homework exercises was to open the records for yourself and then like journal, what you got after. And what seemingly was like going to be just this moment where I was really just open to open, no pun intended, opening the readings, the records. Like I was not expecting really to have this like profound shared death experience that followed. And so I'm just sitting there on the ground with my notepad near me and I'm like doing, that opening Akashic prayer. And all of a sudden, I feel my mom and I'm like, okay, well, it looks like she's here. She's going to help guide me, through the records. And she's like, I want to help you understand the spirit world. I want to help you. Um, I was writing a book like at the time pretty furiously, and she's like, I want to help you understand what it's like on the other side. And so basically, I saw the moment of her passing, and she was laying down on that. I remember because, I was there saying goodbye to her in the hospital bed, and she wasn't conscious. Um, she wasn't even in her body, really. And I saw that my grandma Mary was there on the other side of the bed. And I saw her soul float above her physical body. She held her mom's hand, and they sort of went into this like um portal, like this like circular looking thing. And then all of a sudden it was as if I was like transported into my mom's um experience, like as if I was first person in her experience. And I saw all these like hands, and I know this sounds super creepy, but it was like a bunch of hands opening this like this portal, and the hands made it open wider and wider and wider. And then I just dove into this portal. And um on the other side was what we would call, I guess, heaven. And I just sort of landed in this wide open, lit up space that was very prismatic, rainbow type, like colors everywhere. And essentially, these buildings started appearing like around me, like landscape. And I had this knowing all of a sudden that the other side is how we want it to be. It's subjective. And I started seeing these Greek marble pillars. And I know this is so cliche, but um, and I had this knowing that that was my mom's experience, like that was what she was seeing. And so then I saw all of the loved ones on the other side. And it was like not as individuals. I almost can't explain this with words, but it was like all the animals that passed, all the other the relatives, like they were just all around. And she took me through this journey of like they call it like the healing pools. And there it's like instead of water, it's this like plasma um jelly like substance. And you would immerse your soul, or I guess your holographic body, because I think I she still had like this like hologram of a human body at that point. Like she was like transitioning. I don't know if that makes sense. And she immersed herself into this plasma like jelly substance. Almost like when you see oil on the top of water, it kind of has that sheen, if you know what I'm talking about, or like
Yeah,
gasoline on the top of water.
what I was seeing.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, and she entered it, or I entered it because I was still living her experience, and I was just bawling like the healing that took place. And it was almost like I had this knowing of like she wanted to help me heal and also understand that she was okay. She went through this whole healing process on the other side. And then I had this download and this moment where um it was a knowing, and it wasn't even in like linear sentences. It was basically in a nutshell her saying, you have a lot of time here left. You are here to do important things for our world. And our world is going through a big change at this time. And I want you to be strong. I love you. Please be strong. And it was just like bawling, just crying. And there were these like maidens, or these like beautiful women in gowns around me washing me. I was just like, this is amazing. And because I was crying, the grief like the loss and like, oh my God, like I wish I was actually here, anchored me back into my physical body. And I was like, no, I don't want to leave. And then I fully came back in my body because I was sad, basically. So
Yeah.
that resonance or that frequency of like recognizing that I'm actually not there and I'm sad, it pulled me out of that scene.
Hmm.
But I was so lucky to have that experience. And I call that a legit shared death experience. And I had to Google it after it. Like, I'm like, is this real? And it was as if I was really there. And I have read, experiences of past life, or sorry, not past life, near death experiencers and how it like changes them after and how, I mean, it wasn't a near death experience, but it was definitely like I was shown something totally supernatural. Like, and it was so real. So that's something that I'm going to be writing about.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you shared with me about my dad's experience of crossing over, and it's just so profound to feel what you shared and feel into the peace around it.
Yeah.
So much fear of death and loss and grief that tapping into the peace is is not always accessible, or the first thing that you think about.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you're speaking, the message that I'm hearing is that the buildup of death isn't what we think. And if
Mhm.
we celebrated death in the way that we celebrate birth, um, it would just be a birth into another reality. Um,
Mm.
and what I've been told, some deaths are profoundly painful, or traumatic, so I can't like, it's a very unique experience for everyone. But what I've heard is it's the moment of death is like breathing in this moment, and then you're breathing into another. It's like one door opens and one door closes, and it's actually much easier when we surrender into it and allow the process instead of, some people are like my mom fought death for a really long period of time. So I wish there was more awareness, around this.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the Council of 12 that you speak of. I'm wondering if you could share with listeners about what that term means to you, when it came in, and how you work with the Council of 12.
Yeah. Um, well, I'm like, everything has a really long story. So I'll try not to make it too crazy long, but um yeah, these beings, they're extra dimensional beings from multiple like planetary system. And basically they came into my conscious awareness when I went to this camping event in Southern Oregon. It's like a women's gathering. And I was giving readings at this gathering. And I was reading for one person there. And in the middle of the reading, something weird happened. And I wouldn't even say weird, but weird because it wasn't normal to my readings at that time. I just started feeling like I was speaking and it wasn't me. and not in a creepy way, but in this beautiful, profound way. And I had this vision that above the tent, above the treetops of where I was, like geographically, there was this starship. and and they were like letting me know that we're here. You are actually channeling us. And um I had, feelings before about like, okay, like I think I'm channeling something, but I just like don't know who it is. And of course, like, I had my guides and things like that, but it was this like vision that I had, and it came through me, and a group of ravens just started like cawing at the same time. And I just started channeling, and it was pretty pretty incredible. And I didn't know that I was actually pregnant with my first daughter at that time, very newly pregnant, like before you can take the, I guess, pregnancy test. So at that point, they started giving me information, they as in the Council of 12, that the following year, because this was, sorry, to give a context of time, this was um, summer of 2019. And I had gotten really, really, really sick with this thing called hyperemesis gravidarum. I think I'm saying that right. Where I was vomiting and stuff like that from early pregnancy. And through this like constant sickness, this release, um, I could feel them there giving me messages, and and it was always about the collective, about the world, about the world. And at that point, I didn't think that's who I was. I thought I was more of like a one-on-one type reader, and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna help individuals with their lives. And these guides came in and gave me a broader sense of, now how can I help reach more people and help our world. Um, so they had me start this women's like gathering, this retreat that I launched within 1 month, and then released a retreat like very quickly. And it was all about remembering who we are. I forget the exact title, but it was something about like, remember who you are. Um, and it was this constant theme of getting people ready for the years to come. And then in 2020, or sorry, this was like right when it was December 2019, and then January of 2020, I released this channeling of 2020 being the great change from the Council of 12. And they called this time the Great Change. And um, basically, this automatic writing process that I had with them, which was I grab a pen, and I do this in my readings all the time, which you've experienced, yeah. And they basically take my hand, and I just start writing what they're telling me. And then after a few months, I would close my eyes, and they would say, "Now talk." And I would allow them to enter my spirit body, my space, aura. And I, as I close my eyes into the channel, I would see them in this horseshoe type half circular shape, and I would be in the middle of this horseshoe. And the channel would feel like a hive mind, like they're all speaking, but I'm hearing one singular voice that would make sense to my human brain. And then I would directly like channel it with my voice. So then this channeling really evolved from like writing to then what we call like direct voice channeling. Um, and then when, my mom passed and my daughter was born and the pandemic happened, all those things, uh, it it just exploded open with how I would, channel these galactic extra dimensional beings. So I could say so much more, but
My God, I love it. I think something like that is happening to me,
Ooh.
but I think some part of me is like, I don't need to know. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
What
I would like to. It's very inspirational because like maybe it's okay to know
mhm.
what's coming through you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious, what um how do you feel like what when whoever, your guide or whoever is coming through you, like do you just start writing? Like what kind of channeling comes through you?
Yeah. Usually it's when I'm alone, it's writing. Um, and I know it's happening because it's like I feel like I've gotten on a moving thing or something like it's just happening. It's like a rolling and it's kind of like you couldn't make this shit up. Like it feels very like direct communication.
Yeah,
That's how I do
absolutely.
curriculum myself. And and then I will do that certain times on solo episodes here or in recorded readings for individuals.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love it. Recently, I was in this space with them. I always say them. And it's just like, oh, I just love it so much. I just want to be here forever. It's just such a great feeling to be so guided. But
Yeah.
I never know when it's going to lock in the way it will lock in sometimes more than others. Anyway, maybe
Yeah.
I'll reach out later for mentorship.
We should, but I mean, it makes so much sense from our reading. I'm not going to like divulge, obviously, our private reading, but just like riffing off of that. And then you're like a Pisces, right? So, like, I mean, it feels like you're anchored into something, and reading your offerings and seeing your stuff on IG. I'm like, this person is channeling something. Like, there's a resonance to it, that the words have a frequency that you are bringing and anchoring in a divine intelligence
Mm.
from somewhere. That's quite beautiful. And I think that's probably why a lot of people are like, Britain is like so magnetic.
Well, thank you. We both have Venus and Mercury in the 12th house,
Yeah.
opposite because I'm an Aries rising, so I have Pisces there. But
Yeah.
I do feel that, in a chart kind of a way, that that signature of having, Mercury, your information, your antennae in the 12th house of collective consciousness and dream and through the unseen really can be for people a pronounced kind of channel, to use a word that would make sense. And then Venus too, I feel like Venus is feels to me with the 12th house like a heart channel as well, not just
Yeah.
words. It's like a heart frequency that I feel so much coming from you.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
it's a mirrored thing. I guess if we have the same thing, we see it and we recognize it, in each other.
yeah, listeners know that it's been a process for me to speak about my psychic, more like overtly psychic aspects because I think there's something still grounded in the tangible, logical world to about astrology or write the tarot cards, right? The system provides like a
Yeah.
evidence or something,
Yes. Yeah.
and realizing that what I'm doing with charts, like probably you were describing with the tarot cards, is probably not as intellectual as I may think it is, and it's actually more of something that's being that's just coming through. The chart just signals it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Maybe you're channeling a dead astrologer. Uh,
Goodness. Well, thank you. I'm so glad I got to ask about the Council of 12. That is just so cool. I'm very curious.
yeah.
You don't have to answer this, but do you have a take on non-human intelligence, like what we previously might have called extraterrestrials, that nowadays we're speaking of more as potentially being interdimensional beings that maybe aren't even coming from other planets? Maybe they've just always been here. I'm
Yeah.
curious if any of this idea of a non-human intelligence, perhaps like even other species, like
Yeah.
does it feel like something that resonates as something that's around us and
Yes.
supporting us?
There's so much to talk about this. And as you can tell, I'm very excited about this subject. But that's why I say, like, I think when I first came out of the closet as a galactic channeler,
Yes.
that was my way of labeling or identifying it was like my brain trying to make sense. And I realized over the years, it's okay that I don't even really understand, because I know it's more than one entity or consciousness. Um, some have bodies, some are incarnated, some are not in a body or in a planetary. I mean, my brain, what is that brain emoji where it explodes? It's like
Yes.
that's literally what goes on in my mind all the time. But yes, like there's a lot of what did the like new age call it, the star seed, or I don't know. There's a lot of information about these different like Lyra and Pleiadians and all this, but there is so much that we don't know. For example, here's just one thing that lately I've been pretty interested in is there's this theory when Lemuria or Mu, that civilization fell, that some of the people from that land before it was completely destroyed, they went in, I think some of them went into, like literally went into Mount Shasta. And they call this the city of Telos, so Telosian people. And they live in a different dimensional frequency. So they have bodies, and there's a city, there's like a actually like there's a physical reality. But because it's not in our dimensional awareness, we don't have we can't access them, or we can't see them, we can't experience it. There have been accounts where hikers have been in there, and then they have been brought into this city, and then they talk about their account of meeting these Telosian high frequency beings. So apparently they're in the fourth, fifth, I think, don't quote me on that. Whatever, a higher dimensional frequency that we are unable to access because we're in a third dimensional awareness. However, the theory is that people of Telos um, talk about that more and more people are becoming aware of them because more and more people are raising their whatever frequency. We can call this a spiritual awakening or like whatever. So I think that there's so much that we don't know existing, overlapping our dimensional planes. I think that actually some of us get confused for hauntings or ghosts. Um, that it really is just an overlay of another timeline, or actually you're seeing some sort of like other dimensional phenomena happening. Um, so yeah, I believe in dragons and fairies.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, they all exist, and mermaids, totally.
Mm, yum, yum, yum. So fun. Oh,
Um,
let's see. You have I've been seeing your promo lately. You have a
Yes.
coming up. It's what do you want to tell us about it?
Yes, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's I call it my other greatest hits. And so lately I've been feeling the call to really return back to art making, my art practice, and fusing channeling and psychic and mediumship with art. And historically, we know lots of artists did this, and my experience in art school wasn't always. I mean, I was supported, but I would say I wasn't always totally supported in creating art that is about the metaphysical. Um, I would get sometimes a frowned look, like, what is this about? Can you back this up with a theoretical approach? And I'm
Right.
like, sorry, it's maybe mythology, like, uh,
Mm,
but yeah, so a lot of the work I did was kind of disregarded, and it really was a bummer. And I want to just create this like juicy container, this space where people who are intuitives like us can make art about it. And just, I think we're in a time where it's so dense and heavy. And a lot of people are experiencing like, where's my prosperity? Where's my, and I know abundance, that word is thrown out a lot, but I will use that word, like, where's my abundance?
mhm.
In whatever abundance means to you. And I think that by making art, um, we're creating that for ourselves. So anyway, I'm creating this masterclass. It's a 12-week experience, called the Art and Altar, a channeling masterclass, and you get this handmade altar cloth that I plant dye and hand sew, and I'm gonna hand mail it to you. And it's basically every week we do a method of channeling art, a different method, and you get to build up this tangible altar until you have this beautiful, like, full altar cloth of like channeled writing, channeled drawing, a sacred vessel, amulets, talismans, autographs. Yeah, so um, that's in like almost a week. Actually, it starts. So,
Goodness.
and it's all
Well,
online.
love your teachings. So
Thank you.
inviting everyone to stay connected to your teaching calendar, and you have a wait list to do readings, right?
Yes, I open my books actually seasonally. I realized I was unconsciously doing this, but now I am conscious of it. So I'll be opening them again in about mid-March of 2024, and they usually open and close pretty quickly, and then I'll open it again in the summer. So
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, I tried one time and it wasn't fast enough.
I'll read anytime for you, Britton.
Oh. Thank you so much for coming on Moon to Moon and sharing yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
You're welcome.
So how about that? How about that, y'all? Oh my goodness. Like, this is what I care about. Oh my gosh. I'm just so excited to be like, the picture that I see is like, my hands are reaching into like these mists that are like the limits of what my human self thinks are possible. And that these mists are like where normally I'm like, whoa, no, not that, And what it feels like is some parts of me, the parts of me that are like, no, we're going into this, are becoming louder than the parts of me that are normally like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, And to me, this is the threshold that I really love to be in all the time. And it moves cyclically. Like, I go through these like brave times of the year where I'm like really ready to go into the mists. And then it takes months to integrate. And I think that that's incredibly normal. And like, I think that's probably how most people experience expansion, is that what happens is we are called through curiosity, through our desire, through a longing. The parts of us that want it become louder than the parts of us that are scared, So it's not that we reach the yes because we've discovered we're no longer scared. It's because the longing is louder than the fear, So I'm really, feeling like, wow, this is interesting that this is the second year in a row now that I start to feel into my own thresholds and want to expand right as I'm in the peak of Magician's Table promo. And for anyone who hasn't heard about this, this is my 3-month container for emerging mystics, emerging readers, emerging intuitives, emerging creators who are longing to really expand into new thresholds with an understanding of their magic and an understanding of their offering for the world. It's a very intense container. It's my 4th year to do it. And it's fascinating to me that just as I'm inviting people to do it, I'm also feeling like that for myself, like there's something fractal about it, I think, that feels intelligent. And like I'm wanting to be brave too, like I'm wanting to be curious. I'm wanting to follow this impulse because I know that my approach to astrology has a deeply like galactic channeled infusion. Like, it's never been an intellectual thing for me, although it does satisfy my long background in being an intellectual. But I've always approached it very mystically. And I've never hid that. It's always been there. But I'm feeling more and more like I want to teach astrology, and I want it to come through my channel more than it ever has been before. I want it to be from this place of connection to what we might even call non-human intelligence that I have. I know that I have. And I want to feel myself separating from this is how I think astrology is supposed to be taught in a much more rogue way that is in tune with my spirit, because as an Aries rising with a Mars out of bounds, I go rogue. And I really trust this council, this galactic family that I have. I usually refer to them, I feel them to be a them, like it's a band of beings, my cosmic family. I refer to them usually by that term. And I'm going to go deeper with Mary and like open it up bigger. But I want to share with you something that came through this morning when I was sitting with my cosmic family. I didn't plan to, though. It just started to happen. And so then it was like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. And I wrote things down. And so the way this always works for me is that I start to just feel like something moving through me in a very powerful way as that takes all my attention. I couldn't look up and do something else, this is what's happening right now. And it's really like my voice. It's how I would talk. It's how I would construct a sentence. So I don't really understand how it's also filtering through me, and it's filtering through my human work and my human self. But it has this it has a power behind it that is different than when I'm just sitting there logically thinking about something to write about, in my journal. So I was sitting with my journal, and I was going to name that, whoa, promo is so intense. It's every year. This is the most intense thing that I do because it's a high investment container. So I'm asking a lot, quote unquote, from people. It has a finite number of seats. So unlike everything else I do where I'm I don't care, 20 people could come, 100 people could come, whatever. I'm just calling everyone in, This is something where it's the vision said this many people are supposed to come, And so that makes the stakes feel more intense for my inner children. And so it's always a really high pressure cooker scenario that I every year learn how to hold myself through. And from year 1 to year 2 of Magician's Table, I went from 1 cohort to 2. So that was very spiralic, learning how to expand it and the pressures of promo around filling spots and stuff like that. And then last year was the first year where I filled it super quick, and it was whoa, I wasn't even done with all I wanted to talk about yet. I'm not even going to get to use all this good promo that I wrote. Blessing. And then this year I'm moving from 2 to 3, and I have raised the price. And so there's more for my human self to be oh, the pressure, So I was writing in my journal that last night I was on a walk with my dog in the dark, and I remembered that I have these abilities with inner child healing, yoo-hoo, don't forget your gifts, because we sometimes don't remember that we have these gifts, we have these tools, and we're thrashing, oh yeah, I actually teach on this stuff. Oh, right. So I sat with my scared parts. We'll call them scared parts. They're the scared parts of me. And they were what if nobody comes? What if? What if? And then I practice inhabiting my wise elder, my wise parent, my wise grandparent. And I just kept repeating again and again. Like, yeah, that sounds scary. And also, no matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. No matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. No matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be here. I'm not going to abandon you. We'll work it out. No matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. So I'm writing this morning, and as I repeated it 3 times, it was like that. It was like, dun, dun, dun. Like, it was like a drop in, and then I just started writing. So I want to share with you what I wrote, and because then it just was like coming in. And I knew from the moment I sat down that my guidance was with me, but I hadn't like done the whole thing where you're like calling it in and you're saying a prayer. And I love that because it reminds me that like I have immediate access all the time. I don't have to like set out a time to do this, you know? It's just here. This could have happened in the car. So I wrote, the future me will respond to all scenarios with love, wisdom, and care. The next Monday me will be the one responding to the number of applications. The late February me will be the one responding to what's going on then. I have no choice but to trust that it's all unfolding perfectly and I'm doing a great job. I keep pulling the tower, and it feels like it's all about the mental game of trust and surrender and the pain there. The bottom line is, I will steward this container, and I will steward these 13th readers no matter what happens. I named my exchange, and I set up my pricing based on my desires, and my desires are sacred and loving. Part of how I love the Magician's Table is through this pricing scheme. Practicing the pressure and high sensation of this exchange is part of the magic. You are learning how to be with this pressure, the pressure of your big dreams. Because you practice it for yourself, you will help others to practice it for themselves. I want to help mystics name and hold and steward their humongous visions and dreams. And a massive part of that is staying with your visions through the pressures of doubt and fear of failure. Maybe that dream is loving yourself more and seeing how your gifts have impact. Maybe your dream is to feel more integrated in your magic. Whether you're at the grocery store or reading tarot, you're always magical. Maybe that's to turn your Akashic readings into a side gig that you adore. Maybe that's to tap into what the unique wild offering is that's trying to move through you. Maybe it's to be full-time respected as a public astrologer with a beloved podcast and exciting collaborations, invisible gigs like horoscope writing. At the Magician's Table, I am here, your team is here to witness and celebrate your dreams and visions and cheer you on and help you remember yourself when you move through the material that comes up, when you name, claim, hold, and steward these dreams into being. I thought that was pretty great because like that really helped me. You see, what they gave me was they helped me get into my column, my like root of clarity. Because when you're doubting and you're in a fear spiral and you're like, but what if, like you're out of your root, you know, like, and you're not clear on what you're doing. And they just came in and was like, let's get clear. This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. And what you're experiencing right now is in a fractal way what you're helping people learn how to move through and have more confidence moving through. It's because you move through these pressures when you expand your vision, like I've expanded the vision of Magician's Table this year. So as I expand my vision, so I learn how to sit and hold with the vision, even when parts of me are thrashing, and even when parts of me are spiraling and they're freaking out. Because it's like, vision, I will not abandon you. I am staying here. I'm right here with you. Thrashing's fine, but I'm here. And this is really ultimately what I care about doing, is supporting you, supporting emerging magical people. Whatever it is the vision is none of my business. But because I know about these pressures and I put myself through them, I'm here to help you stay with it. It's one thing to name. It's another thing to claim. It's another thing altogether to hold to. And then it's another thing to steward. Like, these are different steps along a trajectory. And it's not about you getting through all of them in our time together. Maybe just naming yourself a magical person is like the wild and radical thing that you came to do. And like full celebration of that, you know, that's huge. But each of these steps to staying with it is rollicking to the world, your inner world and your outer world. And that's like what I'm here for, you know? That's really what I'm here for. Because I put myself through this, I can support you through it. If I can do it, you can do it. And the Magician's Container is a space where we allow ourselves to walk into the unknown and into the myths, so that we can remember that we already have these abilities. There is a self that's existing that is already living the vision. That's why you're seeing it at all. And trusting in that is a huge leap for the spirit and the soul that the human self will find very frightening. So we've got tools for that. We're working at multidimensional levels in the Magician's Table, so that I can support you, like learn that you already know this, and then you can do it for yourself. That felt really good. Thank you so much for being here. Please go reach out to Mary, follow Mary, get on her newsletter if you resonate with Mary's voice. I cannot recommend having Mary in your life enough. Information about her new offering is going to be in the links. If you listen to this before her deadline, which I think she said is February 17th, but don't listen to me. go to Mary's website to find out. Thank you to everyone here. So much love, so much love, so much love.